Welcome back to longevity. For years, the entire fitness world has praised 16-8 intermittent fasting as the absolute holy grail of fat loss and metabolic health. The standard advice, you skip breakfast, restrict your eating window, and just assume your cells are healing perfectly. But here's the catch. If you've been following a strict 16-8 fasting routine every single morning for years, you might actually be driving your body into structural metabolic dysfunction. Today, we're breaking down a critical physiological shift that reveals exactly why chronic daily restriction can backfire on your hormones, especially after you hit 40, 50, and 60. Plus, we're going to reveal the exact weekly strategy you can replace it with, a strategy designed to supercharge your metabolism, protect your circadian rhythm, and drive deeper cellular repair without running your system into the ground. Okay, let's dive right into this because it completely challenges what we've been taught for the last decade or so. We've been told over and over that skipping breakfast every single morning is this perfect, completely harmless path to healing ourselves. But we really have to ask, is it? Is it possible that this unyielding daily routine is actually doing more harm than good to your internal engine? If you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s right now, listen closely. Your metabolism and your hormone responsiveness, they just aren't exactly the same as they were in your 20s. When you apply chronic, daily restriction to your system year after year, your hormones literally start to rebel. That reliable routine you lean on to stay lean and healthy might actually be backfiring, creating a structural dysfunction deep within your metabolic pathways. Part 1. The cortisol connection. Let's look at why chronic restriction fails over time. To truly understand why daily restriction fails, we have to talk about a vital hormone, cortisol. Let's chronologically walk through a totally normal morning. When you wake up, your body naturally experiences a cortisol awakening response. This natural peak gives you immediate alertness and the energy to jumpstart your day. Now, under normal biological conditions, that cortisol spike is supposed to gradually decline as the morning progresses. And one of the primary signals that tells cortisol to officially stand down? Food. Specifically, a healthy morning intake of clean proteins. But when you skip breakfast every single day for years, that crucial stand-down signal never actually arrives. To keep your blood glucose stable in that fasted state, your body is forced to elevate cortisol for extended periods through stress-driven processes. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we ignore our evolutionary design. Imagine pushing that stress button every single morning. You are essentially training your brain and your adrenal axis to run hot day after day. Think about it. Our ancestors never chose daily, rigid restriction while a modern refrigerator full of resources sat just 10 feet away, right? In the wild, humans fasted through the morning only when food was genuinely physically unavailable. By skipping breakfast daily, you are sending a persistent famine signal to your biology, and in response, your metabolism slows down to defend itself. If you've been feeling frustrated, like your fasting just isn't working anymore, well, this biological mechanism validates exactly why. Running your body hot every single morning flattens your circadian cortisol curve, and a disrupted, flattened cortisol rhythm paradoxically leads to intense insulin resistance, chronic systemic inflammation, and stubborn abdominal fat storage. Yes, you heard that right. The chronic daily restriction is actually causing the exact metabolic issues you probably started fasting to fix in the first place. So let's move to part 2, the weekly fasting cycle, transitioning from a rigid habit to a dynamic rhythm. Now, don't worry, we aren't abandoning the incredible power of fasting. Instead, we're shifting our perspective. We're moving from a rigid pattern to a dynamic feast and famine rhythm. Consider the actual math behind the current routine. Doing a standard 16-8 fast every single day gives you 112 fasting hours a week. On paper, hey, that sounds incredibly productive. But biologically, it means you are disastrously exposing your body to a stress signal every single morning, 7 days a week without fail. It's just too much chronic friction. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how we can completely change the game with a slight adjustment. What if you fasted only 3 or 4 days a week, but you extended those specific fasts to 18, 20, or even 22 hours? By doing this, we might slightly reduce your total weekly fasting hours, but we concentrate them into longer windows. This radically changes the body's stress pattern. It unlocks much deeper cellular repair, all while giving you fully protected eating days. Those longer, concentrated windows, that is where the true cellular magic actually occurs. Pushing the fast to 18 or 22 hours on select days forces your body into deep autophagy. This is the ultimate cellular cleanup process where damaged proteins get recycled, and it's accompanied by powerful insulin sensitization and a genuine metabolic reset. You simply cannot reach this depth of healing with a standard 16-hour fast. And here is the beautiful balance to the whole strategy. On the remaining 3 days of the week, you don't fast. Instead, you eat a wholesome breakfast shortly after waking. These morning meals are absolutely critical. They give your system the official signal to stand down. They lower your stress hormones, they prove to your brain that you aren't in a famine, and they profoundly protect your delicate circadian clock.
Part 3, G-Flux and Protein Leveraging. Let's see how we can maximize those designated eating days.
To get the absolute most out of your non-fasting days, we're going to leverage two powerful biological frameworks. First up is G-Flux, or energy flux. Basically, this is the total throughput of energy passing through your system. Imagine two people, person A and person B. Both of them are maintaining a 200-calorie deficit, but person A eats 1,800 calories and burns 2,000. That's a low flux state. Person B, however, eats 2,800 calories and burns 3,000. Even though the deficit is mathematically identical, person B is in a completely superior biological and metabolic state because their energy throughput is just so much higher.
Human trials show exactly why person B is winning here. A high flux state naturally increases your satiety hormones, like GLP-1. It actively suppresses hunger hormones, like ghrelin. It elevates your resting metabolic rate, and it keeps your muscle synthesis high. So to weaponize this high flux state on your designated eating days, I highly urge you to move abundantly, train intentionally, and eat plentiful, nutrient-dense food. This high flux approach brings us directly to the protein leverage hypothesis. This is such a fascinating biological concept that validates decades of research. It shows that the human body has a strict, completely non-negotiable daily protein target. Your brain will continuously trigger intense hunger and cravings until that exact protein requirement is satisfied. It literally does not care how many empty calories, fats, or carbohydrates you consume along the way. Because modern processed foods are so heavily diluted of protein, we end up over-consuming empty calories simply because our brain is desperately hunting for those amino acids. So the crucial takeaway is this. On the days you eat breakfast, you must front-load your very first meal with 40 to 60 grams of high-quality, clean protein. By hitting that exact target early in the day, you send an immediate, undeniable hormonal shutdown signal to your appetite and your stress pathways for the rest of the day.
Which brings us to part 4, a new metabolic rhythm, protecting your system for the long haul. When we put all of this together, we create a completely new metabolic rhythm. This is all about prioritizing metabolic flexibility over rigid, unchanging limitations. As you transition to this new rhythm and start taking on those longer 18 to 22-hour fasting days, you have to protect your system. Utilize modern science. Keep your minerals high, hydrate thoroughly with pure water, and use clean electrolytes. Doing this makes those deep, restorative fasts incredibly smooth and genuinely effortless.
If you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this core philosophy. Cycle between strategic abundance and intentional scarcity at a weekly level. By varying your rhythm this way, your biology never adapts to a single state, which completely prevents those incredibly frustrating metabolic plateaus. I'll leave you with this provocative thought to really reflect on today. Will you continue starving your stress pathways daily, running your system hot until it finally breaks? Or will you step into a dynamic rhythm of deep cellular repair, high-protein feasting, and absolute vitality? It's time to stop viewing your health through the lens of strict daily limitations. Protect your rhythm, fast deeper but less often, and walk your path in total wellness. Thanks for exploring this with me, and keep learning.